Hello world, and we are back. My name's Kyle Fischl, and this is going to be episode 114 of my poker vlog. For this month, I'm actually on an absolute tear, currently up over $10,000 in just a single month. Is crazy when you're only playing $5 big blinds. I attribute a lot of that success to putting a ton of hours of practicing online micro stakes, and there's no better place to do it than on ClubGG. Getting a massive amount of volume in to sharpen your skills is only going to improve you in the long run. Additionally, they offer a $5,000 free roll tournament every Thursday night. This week, I survived a little over half the field, but could not bring home the win. But with $800 up top, I'd say it's an opportunity you really can't pass up on. And without further ado, let's roll the tape. First hand of note. With 4 limps to me, I'm in the big blind. I look down at 9-7 of hearts. I'm going to raise this one up. Definitely happy to build a pot with suited connectors and play it multi-way. So I don't need to go too big with it. I raise to $15. And all the limpers call. So we're going 5 ways to a flop of 8, 5, 3, 2 hearts. Very good board for my exact hand. Gut shot straight flush draw, as well as my regular just straight and flush draw. We're going to continue betting here. I could have all the overpairs. I could have ace-x of hearts. There's plenty of hands I get value from. So I put out a continuation bet of $30. Well, one later position player calls and the small blind calls as well. So we're going 3 ways to a turn card, which is the 4 of clubs. Brings in a second flush draw, gives me no immediate help. I definitely want to continue and bet bigger here. Put a lot of pressure on my opponent, 1 pair hands, as well as build the size of the pot in case one of my draws does hit. So I continue for $110. To this bet, the later position player folds, but the big blind tanks for a little bit and then calls. And his call was quite interesting. He thought it was only an $80 bet, so definitely a little bit of an added nugget of information. Thinking he's a little weaker than usual, not knowing the exact size of the bet. I feel like if you had a strong hand, you'd be really excited. You would understand the pot a little bit more, so we'll just take that how it is. The river brings no help in the queen of spades.
God, he looks like a dead fish. Oh man, he's a deep shit.
When my opponent checks to me, I could give up here. A lot of the times I would give up here. I think it's difficult to find reasonable stories for triple barrels, but this one's going to be time where I think the situation calls for it. I think my opponent has 1 pair at best. I could easily play the exact way with king, queen of hearts, and I could easily just have 6-7 here. Bet flop, turn it immediately, and keep going with it. So I decided to go for glory. Definitely want to play 100% my best at this point, and I wager $200 that my opponent will fold. He tanks for an extremely long time, over a minute and a half, and I'm just like, just throw your 1 pair away. It's okay. You can wait for the next one. But not this time. My opponent decides to call with ace-3 and the ace of hearts.
What? What?
I'd say this call is adventurous to say the least. Even the times I choose to turn a hand into a bluff, it would be a hand like 8-7 and like 9-8, things like that. So the times I'm bluffing, it does include worse pairs. Even a hand like pocket 6s, pocket 7s, I would bluff with sometimes in the same fashion. Additionally, having the ace of hearts makes it much less likely that I could have like ace-x of hearts and be triple barreling with a flush draw. Now, I happen to be doing it this time, but I think having the ace of hearts specifically makes my opponent's hand a pretty easy fold. But in this situation, it was correct, so nice call, sir. Next hand of note. A few shuffles later, I'm in the button, I button straddle, and with 3 limps to me, I look down at ace-king offsuit. I raise to $50. It's good to get dealt a premium right after you're caught bluffing. I think it's highly unlikely people will believe I have a hand here, so let's go. All the limpers call my raise, so we're going 4 ways to a flop of queen 8-8 rainbow. When it checks to me, just like I previously mentioned, I think my image is shot. I don't think I can credibly rep a hand anymore. So I'm kind of victim to my own image I've created for myself, and I think I have to check this one back. I get a lot of help on the turn on this one with the king of diamonds. What a fantastic card to see. A middle position opponent decides to bet $100, and unfortunately for me, I do think it's possible that a limp caller could have an 8. So I think a raise here would be pretty bad, but I'm definitely not going to fold, so that just leaves one option. I am the only caller, so we're heads up to a river, which is the 6 of spades. Preparing to call a decent sized bet. at some frequency. However, my opponent checks to me. Now, as mentioned on the turn, because my image is shot, I think I can actually get called by a queen here at some frequency. So I go for a smaller sizing here. Hopefully I can get paid by a queen X, maybe pocket 9s, pocket 10s. I bet $175, and my opponent pretty quickly calls with king jack. So my kicker's definitely going to play, and this was definitely a good hand to help me bounce back. I'm into the game for 1,300 at this point, so we are not even, but the stack is doing okay. I win a few small hands before I get to my vlogger optimal seat, and on this hand, an early position player raises to $20. There's one caller. I'm on the cutoff with 6-7 of spades. I'm actually going to take an aggressive route and 3-bet this one. I cannot get back to even by just playing passively, so we're going to raise this one up. I make it $70. Well, both players decide to call, so that's less than ideal. When the flop is jack 4, 3, 2 spades, very happy to see a combo draw again. Flush draw plus gut shot straight draw, very welcome sight. When my opponents check to me, I'm going to continue. My hand has a ton of equity but no showdown values, so I think it's a good spot to bet. Additionally, if my opponents don't have a jack specifically, they'll probably just fold. So I wager $80. Well, one middle position player calls and the other one folds, so we're heads up to a turn card, which is the king of diamonds. When my opponent checks to me, I think I have to amp up the aggression here.
Everybody gets one chance to do something great.
I could easily have ace king, I could easily have pocket kings, and additionally a hand with 0 showdown value. Similar to the first hand, I'm going to just go for 3 streets and hopefully this time just connect on the river and be able to bomb away. So on this turn card, I bet $160. Luckily for me, this one does not take too long for my opponent to fold, and I do not have to blast off on the river for a second time. This is your reminder to subscribe. Next interesting hand. I button straddle with 3 limps. A middle position player raises to $65. I decided to defend my straddle. I think 9s is good enough to call. No need to 3-bet. So I make the call. One of the other limpers decide to call, so we're 3 ways to a flop of king 5-5. Probably gonna have to stick around for at least 1 street here. When the limp caller and the pre-flop aggressor check to me, I think I can bet pretty happily here. If anyone's likely to have a 5 on this board, it's me as the button straddler defender. As well as the fact that if my opponent had a king, I really don't expect him to check all too often. So thinking I have the best hand, need some protection against random overcards, I decided to throw out a bet of $125. And both players quickly fold. So I guess my image is getting better at this table, even though I haven't had anything yet. Next hand of note. With a button straddle, I'm in the small blind with pocket jacks. Even though I'm very early position, still going to raise this one up. I make it $30. Well, 5 different opponents call, so we're going 6 ways to a flop of 6-5-3, 2 spades. Well, jacks don't make an overpair all too often, but when they do, I'm definitely going to bet. Even into 5 opponents, I don't want to give any of them a free card to chase a flush or a straight draw. Definitely need to thin the field a little bit, so I bet $120. But to this bet, everyone folds. So happy to get another one in without needing to get to showdown. Next hand of note. With a button straddle again, I'm in the small blind again. I limp, and on this one, 5 different opponents decide to limp, so we're 6 ways to a flop. Definitely an action-packed table. And the flop comes 9-8-7, 2 spades. So flopping top pair plus a gut shot straight draw. I think this is another hand where I can easily bet into the field. Plenty of draws that can pay me off. If a 10 comes, I'm pretty much guaranteed to have the best hand. Additionally, it's hard to flop top pair. So I bet $40. 3 different later position players decide to call, so we're going 4 ways to a turn card, which is the king of diamonds. Well, aggression has been the recipe for success on this session, so I think I'm going to continue betting on this one. I am somewhat concerned someone might have king X of spades specifically and just turn top pair, but I think some better 9s and some straight draws would fold to the second barrel, so we're definitely going to fire again. On this one, we bet $130. To this bet, only the button called, and the button was an extremely action player. He's one of the few people that can have almost any 2 cards in his hand, so I'm happy to be a heads up against him. Probably going to have to check call any dicey river. However, the king of clubs is not dicey at all. It's actually very good for me. Makes it highly less likely my opponent has a king, although obviously king X of spades is still possible. It's also an excellent card because a hand like 9-8, 8-7, 9-7 all just got counterfeit. So additionally, because the button is so much action, I think that this particular opponent might call a smaller size bet with second, third, or even fourth pair. So I'm actually going to bet for value on this one. I bet $200, but my opponent quickly folds, so he likely had a misdraw. And that was what I consider a very thin and very great value bet on this particular day. And the stack's looking great. I'm actually in for 1,800 now, but very close to even. Now the stack looks worse.
Oh no.
But on the next hand of note, an early position player raises to $20. I'm in middle position with pocket eights. I'm going to make the call. Think it would be an overplay to 3-bet. Think we can happily set mine and evaluate post-flop. Well, a late position player min 3-bets to 40. And then the pre-flop aggressor folds and it's back on me. Well, for $20 more, I'm not going to fold pocket eights. So we're going to play it out of position against a 3-better. Not the best scenario. Even worse when the flop is ace high. My opponent has all the best aces in range and I really can't have any of them. However, I do think it would be too weak to fold to just one C-bet on this board. So if my opponent decided to continuation bet, I'd probably call one street and then reevaluate. I check to my opponent and he decides to check it back. Kind of shocked at that development. I think his hand is definitely like jacks, queens, or kings at this point. So when the turn is the deuce of clubs, I'm really hoping I can represent like ace 5, ace 4, things like that, and get one of the pocket pairs that are higher than eights to fold. So I bet $45. I think it looks extremely value heavy, like I have a weak ace. However, this bet does not deter my opponent. He decides to call. Very disappointed to see that. Till the river is the 8 of clubs. What a beautiful sight. So perfect looking. Now that I think my opponent has worse than a pair of aces, and I somehow have basically the nuts at this point, I suppose it's not impossible my opponent could have pocket aces and be super trapping or going for a high hand, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I think I have to bet very, very small here. I pretty much think my opponent has a medium strength pocket pair, so I only wager $75, and my plan works out perfectly as my opponent calls with pocket tens. So very lucky river card and a decently made value bet. Next hand of note. With one limp, I'm in late position with 10 jack of spades. I raised to $20. There's 2 callers, so we're going 3 ways to a flop of queen, 4, deuce, 2 clubs. When it checks to me, I think this is not a great board to continuation bet. If I get raised, I pretty much have to fold, but I have a decent amount of backdoor equity with backdoor spades, backdoor straight. So I check this one back. The turn is the 9 of diamonds, actually an amazing card. I'm somewhat surprised to see an early position player lead out for $75, over betting the pot. I actually think this could be a hand like ace 3 or 3-5 or clubs. Seems hard for my opponent to have a stronger hand on this particular board. However, I do think sets are very possible too, or turn trip 9s and wants to get as much value as possible. He may take this line. So I think there's actually a lot of implied equity if I hit my hand and I can just fold if it bricks out. Decided to make a somewhat speculative call. The river is the binkest city I've ever seen, ever. Gives me the actual nuts. Doesn't change the overcard. Best card I've seen in forever.
Forever. Forever. Forever.
Unfortunately for me, my opponent decides to check it to me. If he had a hand strong enough to overbet the turn, I think he can call a larger bet on the river. So we're going to go closer to pot with this one. I bet $200. Definitely have to go big when you have a very disguised hand that you really shouldn't have and had a lot of luck getting there. My opponent snap calls, so I guess he had a somewhat strong hand. So definitely could have got more on this one.
So how can I have some more of nothing? Shut up! You're killing me, Smalls.
But definitely happy with the result and happy to get paid when I make a ridiculous hand at the river. Stack's looking really good now. We are probably even or just above it. I changed tables one last time as my table broke and it was getting later into the night where one final interesting hand happened. I bun straddle at pocket kings. The big blind raises to 60. He'd been a very tight player, so I hope he has some kind of super strong hand and we can get a big pot leading up the end of the night. So when it folds to me, I'm going to 3-bet this one on the larger side. I make it $200. When the small blind folds, the big blind thinks about it for a little bit of time, but then eventually folds. Ugh, you're killing me.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Wish you could have called that one. But very happy with the results of this day. We are into the game for 1,800, out of the game for 26.22. Across 9 hours, that equates to $91 an hour or 18 big blinds an hour.
That's how you do it, Smalls. It was a heater.
Well, if you watched all the way at this point, thank you. I appreciate it. Please leave a like on the video. It helps me out a ton. My next meetup game in Orange City is tentatively going to be October 15th. So if you're interested in the 1-3 $10 bomb pot, I will see you there. Otherwise, I will see you on the next one.